Hi, welcome to the show. Our topic today is the Bradshaw Ranch just outside of Sedona. We're going to be talking about UFOs and paranormal activity there, and there's a lot. First, we want to say hello to our listeners in Salt Lake City, Utah. Thank you for tuning in. We love having you here with us. It's kind of a big topic. We need to jump in. And I should say right up front, there's been every bit the same activity and maybe even more of it at Bradshaw Ranch west of Sedona than there is at Skinwalker Ranch that's on the TV show. So people call it the Skinwalker Ranch of Sedona. It's not in Sedona city limits, but it's pretty close. That's the nearest city. Roz, what have you heard about it? Because I mean, I've heard so much from people who've been out there and had experiences, very credible people too.
Well, I have not been there. I just chose not to. I was, when I was living here about 10 or 15 years ago, I read, some of the events that had gone on out there. There's a local guy here who'd written a book. I checked that out. I talked to people who went out there, a couple of tour guides I knew, that would head out to that area. And yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of paranormal activity out there. I just had no interest in.
Is it the guns? Is it all the
Yeah.
reports of machine guns wielded by military?
Yeah, it's just not in the mood,
Yeah, I haven't been on the ranch yet. I've overlooked the ranch, and I'll talk about that. I'll be on the ranch soon, but we had to postpone that. I was so hoping to have that trip under my belt before today's show, but it rained too hard. I will say this ranch was homesteaded in 1920. So it's been there a long time, and the whole area around there would look very familiar to many of you because it was a key location for movie sets and TV shows in the 60s and 70s. But what's primarily been reported there is ETs, UFOs, Bigfoot, dinosaurs, other paranormal activity. It's aliens themselves. So there's a lot going on there. And then some other kind of weird things I'll get into. It's rumored to have been confiscated by the US government due to having one of the most powerful interdimensional portals on the planet. The government says they're doing climate research, and I looked up and they post results of their climate research, but I'm sorry, I know too many people who are tour guides and people who've been out to that area that are doctors and medical professionals, just other medical professionals, just credible people who've been greeted by soldiers carrying military grade guns, asking them to leave. That's not normal for climate research activity. So that's the reason that I have been loath to go out there, is I don't care to encounter gun-toting military, and they could take you and even file charges against you if that's trespassing on private land. I want to talk about an interesting story. This is a friend of mine who is a medical professional, and she was on a tour with her sister, her niece, and a couple other people with a local tour guide, and they were on the road that borders Bradshaw Ranch, and they were able to actually at that time walk onto the ranch, but they were getting ready to leave. And when they were driving, it kept taking way too long to get back to this turnoff. And my friend realized, hey, there was a distinct looking tree. And she's like, I think we've passed this tree 3 times now. And the tour guide admitted it was like they were driving in a loop, like they'd gone past the same area again and again. And the tour guide says, I feel something coming in as I say this. She said, we picked up a hitchhiker, and meaning like an alien, and they are doing something with time here. And so she pulled over and everybody got out of the vehicle and they opened all the doors. And this is important. This is a funny part. Before they did that, there was an incredibly nasty stench in the car that was unidentifiable. And everyone's looking at each other and they're like, it's not me. I don't know what that is, but it's not me. So when they stopped the car, opened all the doors, the smell went away really quick. And then they got in and they were able to leave. They were able to leave like normal. I mean, this woman who runs the tour service, she does this tour regularly. So that was something that had never happened before. And my friends have told me about this story repeatedly. It really sticks in their head. It just really was one of the things that was a really eye-opener for them, because none of them were particularly into UFOs and things like that. So now they've become very interested since that visit. And the other thing that happened on that visit on the ranch that I'm remembering was that the tour guide, there was like this shaft with a grate over it that goes very deep down into the earth. And they don't know what it is, but there's such an air current coming out of it that they put a Kleenex over it and it was floating like 3 feet above the grate. And it was a steady, strong current of air. So they don't know what that's about. Is that climate research? I don't know. But anyway, that was one friend's story. I don't know what happened with one of the tour guides, Roz.
I just remember hearing tales of someone that I was acquainted with years back, haven't seen for years, went down there with a group of people, and they could see inside the building, the ranch building, and furniture was being moved all over. There was no one in there, but they'd look and pieces of furniture would move and then just be there and then move again. And there was no one present that they could.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I heard that story. And then I also heard, that while they were out on the property, they were hearing all kinds of strange, sounds and strange backup noise and kind of like howling and whining and different things like that. And it was shortly thereafter that I remember hearing that the government had shut it down. They had place guards out there and you weren't allowed to access the area anymore. So,
That's all fenced off.
Yeah, this wasn't my personal experience. These were things that people told me who went out there. And there were some, I read some different sightings that people had when they were out there. So, there's definitely a presence of energies, entities, different things going on.
I've often wondered when I started hearing all those stories. I think I told you I had barely moved to Sedona, and I went on a tour that we drove to the base of a mesa that's kind of overlooking Bradshaw Ranch area, and we hiked to the top of it. And I had an experience in full daylight in that area that I still can't get out of my head. I was just looking out at the view, and something about 30 feet tall came. I know I told you about this. It came walking from the left, and it was about 30 feet tall, and it was sort of stick-like, but like shaped like bolts of lightning. And it had a sharp pointed head, and it was moving in a real jerky fashion. And it looked over at us, and then it went walking straight ahead off, and it was out of sight very quickly. And I looked around and nobody else was reacting to this. And I said something to the tour guide, who ended up being somebody that Roz knew and I know now. And he's like, oh, that was probably a skinwalker. Now I looked it up later. That is not a skinwalker because it did not have an animal head and they're not usually 30 feet tall. I think it was some alien being. And it was crazy. Like I just watched that thing from the time it walked in till it left the site and nobody else saw it. But you know how that is with your frequency reaches a point and you can see things others can't. And that can include alien beings as well. So that was right in that area. And then another thing sticks in my mind is a good friend who used to come to a group, my paranormal group. She was in a very specialized branch of the military for years for work, and she's not anymore. And she was with a friend and they were at an overlook. And I have to ask her if it's the same one my group went to 3 weeks ago. But she was at a place that overlooked the ranch. And they were just like sitting in chairs, just kind of looking at the night sky and seeing if they saw anything. And 2 black sedans pulled up. And if it's where we were, this is mind-boggling because we had to take 4-wheel drive and it was at least 30 minutes off the highway on a 4-wheel drive road. So these 2 shiny black sedans pull up and these guys get out who she said look like men in black, like dressed in suits, and they were with the military and they were questioning them as to what they were doing there. Who are you? What were you doing there? And they were asked to leave. And it's interesting because that they weren't on private land. It's like, where do you get off telling people to leave public lands, you know? So I have expected when my group was out there to have that happen, but I'll talk about that later. But she was a little freaked out by it. She said they felt menacing to her and she wasn't sure if they were going to take them and interrogate them somewhere, that was the kind of feeling she had. So, and this woman is extremely grounded, like just super credible, extremely grounded professional person. So these are not like wild conspiracy theorists, fringe people. These are highly functioning professionals having these experiences.
I remember during that period where I hadn't lived here a long time, so it was kind of still a learning curve of some of the interesting things that go on here. And I do remember, discussion of these strange appearing, people that would just suddenly show up out in that area. Like literally, like go poof. And they were there. So, a little freaky.
One of the members of my paranormal team said that they've been out there stargazing in that area before, and helicopters, like unmarked black helicopters, have flown over and like circled around, like checking out, who are you, what are you doing? We were laughing because here we are, a bunch of middle-aged women, and they're probably like, well, I don't think we have much threat from them, What are they gonna do, Marauders? I don't think so. So there's been a lot of reports of things like that, and I used to live on the other side of that in Sedona, and just the other side of that ranch area in my house I had that Roz helped me survive. And there was a lot of weird activity going on there. There was a lot of unmarked helicopters flying by and around the house at all hours, and it's kind of isolated there, so it was very, very odd. Probably had more to do with the ranch. This ranch is not that far from Thunder Mountain, and Thunder Mountain, that's right in Sedona, is very well known for UFO activity. It's even rumored there's like some kind of entrance in and out that UFOs take because they just appear seemingly out of nowhere around the Thunder Mountain area. So that whole area is just incredibly active with the UFOs. And I think most people know Sedona is one of the most active places in the world for UFO activity. Probably also got the most people interested in UFO activity. So here's what happened. The first time that we went out there was probably a year ago, and we went to a place called Airy Point, which is, you have to go out towards Enchantment Resort and then left, kind of far away out there, and it overlooked the ranch pretty well. And all we saw were lights that would show up and then disappear. And they were like glitter, 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 disappear. And there's no roads over there. So there's no cars. And that was about it. There was really no UFO activity, but we had a lovely evening. So we decided we needed to go to a place that was closer overlooking the ranch, which we did 3 weeks ago. That was the off-road trip. Thank God one of my friends has an off-road vehicle. Packed that thing full of women, and we were out there in the pitch black dark setting up camp. And we had night vision goggles and strong binoculars, and we had some paranormal equipment with us, and we did some testing with the equipment around the area. There was nothing abnormal with that, like radiation, anything like that. We did not see UFOs, but what we did see was something that was unexplained coming from right in the center of the ranch, which was a big beam of light that would just randomly shine up from the ranch up into the sky. And so we got very curious about this. That was the only, we decided, okay, this isn't close enough. We need to get closer. So luckily, as we're packing up our vehicle, these two vehicles came up from even further out that road. And it was two trucks of these guys and a woman who are very professional paranormal investigators. And they were telling us that they found a way to get down. So they're right at the edge of the ranch. They actually went onto the ranch, and they were telling us about their experiences. They were looking for the Sasquatch because that's something that's been reported there. Apparently a female Sasquatch, and I can't remember, maybe Lucy might be the name they have for it, but apparently she likes Skittles and certain sweet goodies that they left out on a table, and then they went away and then it was gone. I don't think that's conclusive evidence that a Sasquatch took it, because there's all kinds of animals in the desert that would love to have little snacks left out for them. So they didn't see that, but they've been out there a number of times. So they told us how to get closer. So we're right on the outside of the fence. And I don't know if we'll go on. I don't care to get trespassing charges, but we are going to go to that location as soon as possible. Because we want to be able to see better. We want to see right into the ranch area. So this is gonna be interesting. We'll see if we can see what that beam was that was shining up into the sky. There's so many people who've been out there, and now they were stopping you if you tried to go onto the ranch. They'd stop you, armed guards. Now apparently they don't even want you to go on the road parallel to the ranch. So it seems extreme for climate research, don't you think, Roz?
Yeah, sounds a little odd.
I think personally, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a very grounded person, but I looked at the website for their climate research, and it's not extensive. And I thought, well, if I was the government and I wanted to cover up that I was doing research on paranormal things at a ranch, I would come up with a story of what we're really doing there. And I'd create a basic website and put some data up there to make it look legit, just to try to shut it down.
If you could.
I think that's what's going on. I think it is. I will say the previous owners of Bradshaw Ranch reported the same frequent and unusual paranormal events as those reported on Skinwalker Ranch. And it went on for a very, very long time. Did you ever meet any of the Bradshaws, Roz? You've been around Sedona longer than I have.
I did not.
I knew some in Prescott at high school. I went to school with some Bradshaws, but I'm not even sure it's the same family. So, but there's a woman named Linda Bradshaw. Have you heard of her?
Yeah.
So
have
she
heard
owned
her.
that ranch for 50 years.
Yeah. And
And
you know, a lot of the reported paranormal events and things that went on out there, some of these things are just, you know, kind of, I guess I would describe them as normal sightings. You know, sightings of things that are kind of fall under the category of normal. I mean, not even going into the paranormal. You know, so I think a lot of it has to do with there's bound to be a multi-dimensional portal there.
That's what I'm thinking that there is. I mean, I didn't even know till I did the research for today's show that Linda Bradshaw saw dinosaurs on the property. She's the one who owned that ranch for 50 years. And she's convinced there's an interdimensional portal there because she's seen, what did she say? Orbs flying through the air, alien that are gray, like the grays. She saw Sasquatch-like creatures and dinosaurs and and UFOs. And so the dinosaurs caught me by surprise. I thought, wow, I saw a movie recently where there was a portal and dinosaurs, people were seeing dinosaurs in an area. So that's interesting. I have not seen a dinosaur anywhere in the Sedona area. So I have to say, I don't know about that, but she's lived there 50 years and she wrote a book about her experiences on the ranch. And you mentioned this guy earlier, Roz, Tom Dongo, and he is the Sedona resident who's a UFO expert. He's an expert on Bradshaw Ranch. And the book that they wrote is called Merging Dimensions. And I'm going to get that book because I'm very curious, since we're going to do more investigations out there. I'm very interested in seeing what she saw living on that ranch for 50 years. Both of them and other people have said that the primary amount of the phenomena on the ranch happens in the last hour of twilight. So interesting. So we actually are going to go out late afternoon and stay through the last hour of twilight is what we're going to do. There is another story I found that I thought was really interesting, and it was about a film company. And Mysterious Universe reported this originally, that in 2013, a film crew came to cover some of the activity on the ranch, and it was for an episode of Discovery Channel's show called Uncovering Aliens. And a member of the film crew wandered away, was surrounded by disembodied voices, and then he experienced missing time and his watch was malfunctioning. So they were all excited since they were there to investigate this kind of thing. They love it when they actually find something. I've watched a million paranormal shows, oh my gosh, over the years. I think I've seen them all. And most of the time, nothing happens. So that's the way it is. I mean, you would have to go very frequently to increase your odds. So don't think you're going to come to Sedona, find Bradshaw Ranch and amazing. You might see something, but honestly, I think it's the people who live there or the tour guides who are there night after night after night in that area who are much more likely to experience things just by the odds of how frequently they're there, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I have another friend who's a tour guide for Pink Jeep Tours. I'm going to ask her if she's seen anything out there. I bet she has. She's a character. But those tour guides have a lot of interesting stories. So we have our own Skinwalker type ranch here just outside of Sedona, and it's definitely a source of curiosity and discussions and musings from the locals. I'll tell you that. They love to talk about Bradshaw Ranch. Anything else you want to add to this today, Roz?
No, I just think from the standpoint of
I can't hear you.
Having an open mind. I think having an open mind is important.
It is. If you want to see things, then you're more likely to see it. If you're a complete skeptic, you'll write off everything you experience. You can come up with explanations. I try to, though, I try to debunk with logic and science and reason, because I don't think everything's paranormal.
Well, there's a lot of the activity that's gone on out there at Bradshaw that they are now showing on the television show about Skinwalker Ranch. And I think we have to take it with a grain a little bit. There's definitely, from the standpoint of multi-dimensional options and beings and things like that, there's no question that this stuff exists. It's how you want to deal with it. You know, if
Yeah.
you're gonna freak out,
I think for me, as I was telling Ross something that happened to me last night on my drive home from Prescott, which it didn't freak me out. It just made me think, what the heck did I see? But I've had a lot of that in my life. What the heck did I
oh,
just see?
you
So
certainly have.
I came home and I pull out my journal and I'm like, okay, here's what I saw. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. And that may be, your experience with places like Bradshaw Ranch too. They just don't expect to see something specific and just be open to whatever you do experience. If you'd like to know more about us or our services, we'd like you to visit our website, SedonaSoulSisters.com. Please follow the show so you don't miss an episode, and like us because it always makes us smile. And tune in next week. Our topic is life in the afterlife. As mediums, we actually have had a lot of experiences with our clients and some even with ourselves of what the afterlife is like and what it's like for people on the afterlife once they're in spirit form. So we'll talk about that. And in the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.